standing up in front of you guys. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. But also that it's a women's midweek. I love women's midweeks, especially leading up to Women's Day. Guys, Maggie's first event actually was Women's Day. And if that doesn't convince you that Women's Day is special, hopefully my sermon will convince you later on. But also it's just incredible, like, for Beth to welcome us as well. Thank you, Beth, for welcoming us today. And even just crazy how, like, Beth studied the Bible with me and then studied the Bible with Maggie, so there's a little lineage there. But it's just really awesome. And like Beth said, today I'll be talking about pure joy. That's the topic of today. So yeah, I think that there was a reason why I was asked to share today. People have told me that I'm like a very happy sister, very lighthearted sister, and all of these things. And even like before I was a disciple, people used to see me that way too, just like this smiley, giggly person. One of my best friends in high school, actually, she told me that her first impression of me was that I was a Christian. And at the time, I wasn't a Christian. So I asked her why. She's like, you're so happy all the time. There's probably no other reason why you would be that way. But what I found, guys, as I'm learning to change my mind as a disciple in my heart, is that happiness is not the same as joy. And that's something that I really studied out recently for this lesson today. So what I found is that you can be happy on the outside but not feel joy on the inside. And happiness is deceiving, right? Happiness can cover up pain or even sin. And what is my happiness hidden? Anxiety, depression, insecurity, suicidal thoughts, bitter thoughts, dissatisfaction in relationships. You know, maybe stress about Women's Day. Maybe we've been hiding that with happiness. You know, what is your happiness hidden? I want you to think about that today. And God actually knows true joy from happiness. And do we? And so therefore my title today is, Have You Truly Considered Pure Joy? So let's see what God says about joy. So turn your Bibles to James 1. We're going to look at verse 2 through 3.
Come on.
It says, when you're there, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Notice how it doesn't say, feel happy when you face trials, or put a smile on your face, or a brave face when you face trials, or stuff it down and pretend like it's okay when you face trials. We're very good at that as women. I'm very good at that. But it says, actually, consider it pure joy. In other versions of the Bible, it says, count it pure joy, which is really interesting. Because counting is like systematically scrutinizing or examining, like taking an exam, or like listing out potential advantages of a particular situation, you know, maybe to gain a better understanding. And in the context of God, maybe we're trying to gain a better understanding of what God may be doing in that situation. And it's forcing our minds to see something the way that God sees it. And does anyone know the theme kingdom song for the year? We have a theme kingdom song. Does anyone know?
Blessings, the one that James made up?
Yeah, it's called Count Your Blessings, if you've heard of it. So we're going to be learning that this year. But one of my favorite lyrics from that song actually says, count your blessings, name them one by one, so we're counting. And it says, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. And it's surprising because it's different than how we think. And to understand pure joy, because we can't really understand by ourselves, and we have to really see how God views pure joy. And today we're going to let God define pure joy. And I have two simple points. I want it to be really simple tonight. The first point 1, is consider God. And then the second point is consider joy. So point 1, consider God. So we're going to look at how God views joy. Firstly, we're going to look at a word called delight. What does it mean to delight in something? It means to take great satisfaction and pleasure in. So what should we delight in? Turn your Bibles to Psalm 37, verse 4, and we'll see. Give you a sec to get there. It says, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. This is a very popular verse. I feel like We read it and we read the second half of the verse because we like that half. Sometimes I can read and be like, da 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 da, and it will give you the desires of your heart. I'm like, yes, that's an awesome verse. But we're going to look at the first part. It says, take delight in the Lord. So we should be taking delight in God, being fully satisfied with God, and taking great pleasure from God. But what do we actually delight in life? Or what do we actually value? Are you prioritizing something other than God straight away in the morning? Are you reaching for that phone? Are you thinking about that relationship, that conversation you need to have with somebody, or work? What is your mind going to? Are you still chasing that perfect job or more money? That's something that can really consume our minds, and we can actually value that more than God. Are you missing evangelism time because you don't want to talk to people that day? Are you valuing time with your blood family more than the kingdom and coming out to church? Be honest with yourself. Be honest with God. Evaluate what you truly value. And a question I have for you today is, do you value Women's Day? Because I value Women's Day. And I think that coming up to Women's Day, with that said, we have 28 spots left for Women's Day, guys. We've been challenged this week to get 5 each day from each region, which is 4 regions total, which is 20. You do math if you're counting. But I think that we can accomplish this goal of getting every slot filled within 2 days. Let's do it, guys. I think we really can if we truly value this event and put our minds to follow up. Let's look at what God values. Turn your Bibles to Micah 6, verse 8. It says, over there, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Okay, so we see a few things that God values here for us. Firstly, God values righteousness.
Yeah.
In John 14:15 it says, if you love me, keep my commands.
Yeah.
Secondly, God values mercy. In Luke 6:36 it says, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. So not how we think mercy is, but how God thinks mercy is. Thirdly, it says that we should walk humbly with our God. So God values humility. In James 4 verse 10 it says, humble yourselves before the Lord and He will lift you up. So not only does He value it, but He will gift us something if we are humble. That's what God values. But what does He also delight in? In Psalm 147, verse 10 through 11, I love this verse, guys. It says, His pleasure is not in the strength of the horse, nor His delight in the legs of the warrior. The Lord delights in those who fear Him, who put their hope in His unfailing love. So that says that God delights in us. God delights in you. Do you believe that wholeheartedly? We do not deserve God's delight in any way. And so that's why we actually must understand, we must have hope in the nature of His unfailing love. That's why it says, who put their hope in His unfailing love. And His love is shown in Romans 5:8. It says, but God demonstrates His own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He died for us. He died for our sin, for our insecurity, for our pride, for our impurity, our hatred, our debauchery, our laziness, our faithlessness. He died for you.
Yep.
And we must delight in what God delights in. So we're going to align the two, because it's not always aligned, but we're going to do that today. Matthew 5:8, our theme scripture of this year. I love this scripture. It says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So actually, sisters, to have pure joy, we have to see things the way that God sees them. Where have you seen God work recently in your life in a big way? Guys, I want to share about Women's Day because Women's Day is very special to me in Sydney, but also internationally. We're having Women's Days all over the world in this year. And I think it's just incredible. We're having a Women's Day in Minneapolis just a week after the one in Sydney, which is where I'm from in Minnesota, back in America. And that's 1 year since the last year's Women's Day in Minneapolis. And if you didn't know, my mom, I was back home at this time of this year, last year, my mom came to Women's Day in Minneapolis. That was her first event that she ever went to in the church. And let me tell you, when I was home, I was seeing something different than God was seeing last year. I went home and I was like, I'm going to study the Bible with all my friends from my old churches and friends from uni and things like that. I was like, I'm just going to love my family. But I was not focused on converting them at all because my family is like not believers. So I was like, yeah, I'm not focused on that. But yeah, so I was focused on that, and my mom was just kind of seeing my life, my conviction, and I invited her to Women's Day. But I was like, I don't really know what God's going to do with that, but might as well invite my mom. She came, and I actually shared my testimony in like a poem form at Women's Day, which was really cool. And it really impacted her. I didn't know that it was going to do that. But God softened her heart that day. And even on that day, when she was like crying in the bathroom, sorry Mom, I'm sharing this, I know you're watching this, but even on that day, I still was like, I don't know what God's doing. But from that event, it actually inspired her to come out to church. It inspired her to study the Bible. So meanwhile, what I'm seeing is over here in my own little area, and what God's seeing is something huge. And it wasn't even until I came back to Sydney that my mom was ready to become a baptized disciple, which is so crazy. But guys, for Women's Day, we could be seeing these things in our life, like, oh, maybe my friend from work and this, but God can do incredible things at Women's Day if we just see what He's trying to do. So I just really want to inspire you with that, guys. But also, I didn't find my mat. We also need God to have joy. We need the Spirit to have joy. If you go to Galatians 5, verse 22 through 23. It's talking about the fruits of the Spirit here. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Guys, joy is listed second in this list. If we have the Spirit of God within us, we have joy. But we need that. We need God, and we need the Spirit to actually be able to experience joy. So that's point one. It's pretty simple, guys. Really seeing what God's seeing and really valuing what God values as we lead up to Women's Day, but also just in your life personally. Are you seeing God? So my point number 2 is consider joy. So now that we're kind of set up and we want to see what God's going to do, let's actually see how we can consider joy in our lives. So let's go to James 1 again. This is kind of my theme scripture for this lesson today. I'm going to read it again because it's important. In verse 2, it says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So it says, consider it pure joy, meaning joy is a choice. Joy is not the absence of trials, it's our response to them. That is our response. Joy is a state of mind. Joy is the orientation of the heart, which means the attitude of the heart. You know, not the circumstance itself, but our attitude towards it. You know, how do we see that circumstance? You know, I love this example that I have about this. Joe has taught about this before, but a scenario that we have is like you're having a conflict with this person, and you don't really like what they said to you. And you're like, oh, that person made me feel hurt. And Joe's like, you chose to feel hurt. That was your response to what that person did. And I know that has always caught my heart. You know, we can easily blame people for what we feel, but that's actually our attitude of our heart. And so it's the same with joy. That's something that we can decide to have in any circumstance. And so, for those of you who take notes, I have 4 different things that we can choose to put our joy in this point.
Tell us.
So the first one is we can choose to have joy and peace. So actually joy in the Greek, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but it's chara. And it means cheerfulness and gladness, but also, I found this interesting, it means calm delight. So we talked about delight before, but now it's like this calm delight, which I love. And joy comes from peace. In Proverbs 12 verse 20, it says, deceit is in the hearts of those who plot evil, but those who promote peace have joy. You know, when you are joyful, people can see you at rest. You know, they see like the energetic and the happiness too, but there's an inner rest in you that people can see. It's very obvious. It like radiates from you. You know, joy does radiate. I love the scripture in Acts 4, verse 13. It's talking about the apostles Peter and John. It says, when they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished. And they took note that these men had been with Jesus. I'm going to change this verse a little bit. Are you following me? It says, when they saw the joy of, let's say, Emma and Davinas, they took note that these women had been with Jesus. People can see when you have joy that you have been with Jesus. You know, are you walking away from your quiet times just oozing joy? Are you, sisters? So that's my first point, joy and peace. You can tell that you're at rest.
Come on, Maddie.
Second one, we can decide to put our joy in hope. We need to see hope in our life, guys. Like before, needing to see the life the way God does in our first point, we need to see hope in the same way that Jesus sees hope. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 12. Starting in verse 1. Are we there?
Yeah. Come on, Ned.
Okay, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set out before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So we see here that Jesus chose hope in his joy. He fixed his eyes on heaven. That was what he hoped for. What brought Jesus to the cross was his joy. You know, it was perseverance, of course, determination, obedience, and his will, but it was his joy. That's what this verse says. It was his joy that allowed him to endure the cross. That's what he chose. And it says, the joy set before him. So it was joy, but it was joy in the hope that one day he would be with God in heaven. That was what this all was for, and that we could get an opportunity to have that as well. You know, without hope in what's to come, it says we will lose heart. We can have everything, but without the same hope that Jesus had, we will lose heart and grow weary. You know, that's what happened in my life before I was a disciple. You know, I had a lot of things. I had a great family, I had an education, had money, I had so much privilege. I had so much, but I was missing one thing, which was the hope that Jesus had. And you know, I remember, like I mentioned before, my happiness hid my suicidal thoughts. You know, to be really real, I was experiencing that for a really long time in my life and not really telling anyone. And it got to actually the semester of uni before I moved to Sydney 2 years ago. Well, I was just hitting the bottom. I was like, I don't know what else to look for. Tried calling my mom that night, couldn't tell her, and I actually ended up calling the suicide hotline to see, like, okay, this is their job. I was thinking very logically. It's like, maybe I could talk to them and they could help me out, give me a solution. So hopefully, I called them, and I was like, listen, this is how I'm feeling. I really want to die, and I don't really have a plan. What can you tell me? I was just like, I need something, please. And this guy on the other side was like, right, yeah, thanks for calling. I really appreciate you calling. I was like, you know, what do you have to say to me? And he was just like, well, do you have water to drink? I'm like, yeah, my water bottle's on my desk right here. Do you have food to eat? Yeah, I made myself a sandwich earlier. He's like, all right, so you said you don't have a plan and you're in a safe environment. I was like, yes, but my mind's not safe. I'm not feeling right. I really need help. And he was like, well, if anything happens, you know, drink some water, eat some food, and if anything happens, just give us a call back. And then he hung up. This guy literally hung up the phone on me. And I remember sitting there, guys, now I can look back and it's kind of comical because I was looking for hope. I was looking for the answer. And in the world, that's rock bottom. That's when you're reaching your last reach out. And he was like, drink some water, eat some food. Do you think that guy had the answer to life? No. And so I had to look elsewhere. But I felt like I had already done that. And it wasn't until I actually studied the Bible and found Jesus and actually understood what hope was through his life, through his actions, that actually found what I was looking for, and I was full of joy because I had been searching for that for so long. Do you guys remember the Ethiopian eunuch, or have you heard of him? Remember when he was baptized and he went out of the waters rejoicing? Because he looked for that for so long. He went so far. And I remember reading that scripture for the first time being like, that's me. I went so far to find the answer, and I finally found it, and I was out of the waters rejoicing. And so, sisters, put joy and hope. And if you haven't found hope, study the Bible. Study the Bible. Okay, third one. We can decide to put joy in gratitude. All right, Philippians 4. Let's turn there. In verse 4 through 7. We see joy again. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. All right, sisters, choosing gratitude in prayer will radically change your heart. It will radically change your heart and your relationship with God. I want you to start to practice gratitude more in your prayers. You know, go there with God. One of my prayers this past week was actually going back to that moment I just shared with you guys and thanking God that I'm still alive today. That I made it past that phone call, you know? I don't know what could have happened that night, but for some reason, he allowed me to still be here and to go across the world to study the Bible with Beth. And now I'm a disciple. I didn't deserve any of that, but God made that happen. Like, be personal. Thank God for the things that he has done for you. And I want you to get specific and get intimate. You know, my challenge for you from this point, guys, is tomorrow morning, the first thing that you do in your quiet time, this is something that I have been challenged to do many times, write out on a blank sheet of paper, 1 through 100. Just dot it out, 1 to all the way through 100. And sit there until you fill out that list of things you are grateful for to God, that are specific, that are only you and God. And start to pray over it this week. You know, this whole week, look at your list. Pray for it. Pray for all the things that you are grateful for, and see how joy will wash over you, and it will guard your heart and mind from so many things you can't even imagine this week. So that is my point on just being grateful, guys. And my fourth one, last one in this point, is joy and perseverance. This one's a little bit, you know, maybe sometimes we don't want to look at this, but we should today. So in 1 Peter, let's turn our Bibles to 1 Peter, chapter 1. 1 Peter, chapter 1, verse 6 through 9. Alright, it says, in all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. So, we must find joy in pushing through a trial, because this proves our genuineness in God. And going back to value, you know, what God values. In this verse here, it says that proving our faith in this way to God is worth more than gold. So it's very valuable to God. And there is true value in perseverance. Sisters, do you value perseverance? I think of some incredible women in this room that have persevered through so much. And I look at their life and I value their example. You know, in Parramatta region, the region I'm in right now, there are some incredible women that have gone through some things that have proven their faith. I think about Steph. I think Steph has been a true embodiment of this scripture. So she has persevered through so much, and she is so joyful, guys, because of this, and God has seen that. I think about Lydia. I don't know what Lydia is an awesome sister who has been through more than you guys could even imagine. Please talk to her about it. She shared her life with me today, and it moved my heart. But she has again and again just waited for God and really proved her faith. And I think about Charlotte as well. Charlotte is another incredible example of someone that just loves perseverance. You know, maybe sometimes she wouldn't tell you that, but she has chosen it again and again. So I know that she loves it because she loves God. And I think I could go off on listing everyone in this room who has gone through something that have really proven their genuine faith to God. But joy is our strength, found in weakness. That's how we persevere. Christ is known for how he chose joy in his sufferings. Are you known for that? In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, let's turn there.
Come on, Maddie. That's awesome.
Okay, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, but 9b through 10. It says, "Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me.
Yeah.
That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight," that word again, "in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties." Man, it keeps going. "For when I am weak, then I am strong."
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to own up to our weaknesses. That's the first thing. For me, I'm working to be more confrontational with my leadership in a loving way. But for me, I can be really nice and not say anything. If you know Minnesota people, we're really passive. So we don't go out there, and I'm learning that from Australians. But that's my weakness. I'm owning that, guys. I'm going to own that weakness because I know that in that weakness, I will find strength. And God sees that. I'm going to own up to hardships and difficulties. Let's be real with each other. We have stuff like financial difficulties. That's my life right now. I'm in a lot of debt trying to figure it out, but I'm going to own it and be like, God's got that. God has got that. We feel a lot. Sometimes we go through heartbreak and hard things. Own that. Don't sit and dwell in it, but own that and be like, that's my life. God's going to help me with that. Maybe we have family issues. Everyone's got their fair share. But own that and work through that with God. Another thing we have to own is persecution and insults. Do you find joy in that? Do you really find joy in that? A funny one over the weekend is I was able to go to a Taylor Swift concert with Liz and Bonnie, which was so fun. And I think Isabel was there too on the other side of the stadium. But it was so fun. But I was all in my get up after church, in my little sparkly dress. And then I was leaving, and Joe yelled at me from his car. He was like, "You look 12." And I was like, "I feel 12." And I love it. I could have been hurt by that. And just been in the car like, "Oh, Joe said this wrong." But I own that because I was like, you know what? I find joy in that. And at that concert, I had pure joy. I don't know about you. I love that. Own that. That's a silly example, but do you truly find joy in persecution? I didn't write this one down, but... there was this experience that I had when I was sharing my faith with the brothers there. There was this big bridge at my old university, and so we would always just walk back and forth on that bridge. And we were sharing our faith, and I remember that day specifically, I was just really happy. I don't remember why, but I was just like, "You want to come to Bible discussion?" Hey, I was just bopping around. And this guy that was biking, this older man, he biked by me, heard me sharing my faith, circled back, and got off his bike just to yell in my face about me sharing my faith on campus. How dare you? You have no right to do that. You are hurting people with your words. You have no right to be on this campus. And I'm talking, he's here, about to grab me. And the brothers were running over to try to get in the situation, spread him out. And I was just I was shook in the moment. I was like, oh wow. But I remember we went back for good news sharing, and the brothers were kind of serious. They're like, when this thing happened. And they're like, "Maddie, do you have good news from today?" I was like, "I was persecuted on campus today." I was so fired up. And they're like, "Oh, wow." But that's how we should feel. We should be like, wow, that's such a privilege to be persecuted for sharing my faith. Do you find joy in that? Truly, we get to decide how big these things are in our life. That is our decision. We get to decide to have joy. This Women's Day that we have coming up is going to be a big part of what we decide. To have joy, to go spread our faith, to invite as many women as possible and just tire ourselves, but in the best way, and have so much fun doing it. And I really hope this inspires you guys for Women's Day, but also just in your life, just to have joy, to find that. Because in the Bible, God defines joy, and it's not really what we think initially, but it is so cool, guys. This topic, I could go on for just hours. But my title for my lesson today is, "Have you truly considered joy?" And I hope that you have after this a bit more. My point one was consider God. Let's go out and see what God's doing, how he sees life, and how he sees joy. My second is consider joy. I want you to walk out of here choosing joy, sisters. And to God be all the glory.
Come on, Maddie.